I believe we are live. Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj here from Losico, and with me I have David William Dye, who's the Assistant Dean of Graduate Programs at Texas A&M University School of Law. And David is somebody who makes the admission decisions and handles the entire admission process. And I thought it would be a great idea to introduce you to David and actually learn from him directly how the applications are shortlisted, what are some of the amazing applications he has gone through, in fact, how scholarship programs work at Texas A&M University School of Law, and a bunch of other things related to admissions. And we'll briefly also talk about career opportunities and so on. And of course, David also runs the online LLM programs at Texas A&M, and he has started very successful online programs before, and he's doing it currently. And there's a lot to learn about running global LLM programs which are run online and how they function and how they work. There's a lot you can even ask, and all of you are most welcome to ask your questions in the chat, right? So there's a YouTube live, so you can always ask all your questions in the chat. And I have a team. I have Ratul here and Rudresh. They're going to keep an eye on the questions and share the best questions. So make sure you ask good questions, because we're not going to take all questions, but the very best questions will be picked up and we are going to answer them. And David is going to answer them. So thank you so much, David, for making time for this and joining us. Texas A&M University School of Law now is a growing brand in India, thanks to thanks to your initiative. And there are a lot of people now very curious about Texas A&M University School of Law, especially the IP law faculty. There's quite a buzz right now, and we are getting questions every day. And I thought it would be so good to have you and hear from you directly. So first things first, why don't we learn a little about you? I know I have heard a lot of stories from Srividya ma'am, who I am guessing our audience is familiar with. She has been here with us before. You have been at Oklahoma University before, right? So, and in OU also, you used to run the admission department, I believe, and run online programs and so on. So can you tell us a bit about your journey as in the academia and in the world of online education and so on?
Yeah, I'm happy to. First, let me say thank you very much for allowing me to join today. I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you and your team and any prospective students who might be interested in our programming. So as you mentioned, I was the director of graduate programs prior to joining here as the assistant dean of graduate programs at another university here in the United States, the University of Oklahoma. I was charged back then, about 13 years ago, with starting a suite of online programs. And over the course of about 8 years, we grew a very successful and rich suite of programs there. About 3 years ago, I joined here at Texas A&M and was charged with the same thing, to come into a school that had the beginnings of an online suite of programs and an LL.M, Master of Legal Studies for non-attorneys. And as you mentioned, we've grown out. So now we have 12 or 13 different areas in which students can study. And we've had tremendous growth in the number of students who are interested in this. I think for us, it's been really important to provide access to legal education. Law schools in the States had traditionally looked at legal education as providing education to future attorneys. Now we are expanding that to providing education to ongoing attorneys, right? To people who are already attorneys, and providing education to non-attorneys. So we've just really expanded our view of who wants and who needs access to good legal education. And I'm really excited about what we're doing here.
Thank you so much for that introduction. David, in India, we have a lot of apprehension about online education. And there's a feeling in a lot of people that maybe, online education is not as good as, physical classroom education. And of course, a lot of that idea is changing now, especially after people are getting more familiar with online education due to the pandemic, a lot of people were forced to adopt online education. But what is your thought? You have been running online education programs, and I see a marked difference in how people think about online programs in the US compared to what we see in India. But I wanted to know what do you think, that are there some advantages, disadvantages uh, to online education, and what changes are you seeing over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be frank, we've dealt with the same thing here in the States. When we started this a dozen years ago or so, there was a lot of pushback about online education, the quality of institutions that were providing online education. Could it be done as well? I think that, we've definitely changed that over time. People now see here in the States that online education can be just as effective as education in the classroom. They're different. They provide different things to students, and there are needs for both. But this can be done in a very high quality way, and that's what we do, and that's what a lot of institutions here in the States do now. This is not something that just initially it was a small number of for-profit schools that did this. Now many or most of our public institutions here, our highest quality education institutions, offer online education. Something else that really changed this is quite frankly the pandemic, right? So when the pandemic hit the States, a lot of our public and private universities had to move everything online, and it thrust all of us into an understanding of what online education was. So we saw massive increases in individuals interested in our online programs. There is no question that we can provide content online in a high quality manner. And the real benefit to that is that we can meet students where they are then, right? So when students must move to a campus, it's much harder to attain that information. And I mentioned in the first question, like what we're trying to do is to offer education more broadly, right? To people who could not get it before. And what we're doing now is meeting students where they are, whether that's in a far corner of the States from us or across the globe.
Right.
So
And so with the way that brings me to a very important question. Like, we are launching this LL.M program. Texas A&M University School of Law has been working on this for a while. And so how this program actually look like? It's going to start soon and classes are going to begin. Can you describe the experience of, and you have run many very high quality online LL.M program before. So what does it look like to participate in a program like this, and what kind of time commitment will it take?
yeah, okay. So as you're aware, classes begin here in just a couple of weeks on August 22nd. Our students will start in 2 courses this first part of term rather, and have a third course in the second part of term. Throughout the course of study over a year, students will take usually 1 or 2 courses at a time to reach the conclusion of the program. The classes are offered asynchronously, so students can log in and participate on a time of their choosing, right? If the weekend is the best time for you and your family to be able to join the lectures, then that's when you'll watch them. But if your preference is at your lunchtime at your employer, right, then that's when you'll get to join the lectures. The content runs in each course for just 6 weeks. So we've condensed the material so that students aren't focusing on 4, 5, 6 topics at a time, but just 1 or 2 topics at a time, right? 1 or 2 subjects at a time. After the 6 weeks is up of the content for each course, there's a final assessment, and then that course is over. The students turn the page and go on to the next course. So the hope here is the students can finish this program, or will finish this program, in roughly a year. So it's a very quick program. They go through a series of about 9 to 10 courses over that period of time. And yeah, that's kind of the structure of the program. And I think there was a second part to your question. Please forgive me if I missed it.
Yes, also, like, how much time commitment is needed. And I know that there would be some office hours where they can interact live. For after every class, there would be some kind of an office hour, right? So if you
That's
can.
right. Thank you for the reminder. So yeah, students will have so while the core requirements of the course are asynchronous, so you can participate at the time of your choosing, there will be synchronous office hours where you have an opportunity each week to speak to the faculty to make sure that you have had a chance to get your questions addressed by the leaders of this program, by the faculty who lead this program. On the final portion of your question, it was the time commitment. So look, this is going to vary a little bit per course, and it's going to vary depending on the number of courses you're in. So if you're in 2 courses in that first part of term, you might need about 20 hours a week to conclude all of the subjects required for that course. In the second part of term, when you're taking only a single course, that may dip a little bit. You may see yourself only needing 10 to 15 hours. Every course is a little different, right? The requirements for the subject are a little different, but this is definitely something we have designed to be manageable while you're working on your career, have potentially a family at home. It is a program built for working adults. So there is a real commitment, right? This is a real degree program with real requirements, but it's designed to be concluded while you're going through also a real life.
Okay. And so would you say, like, how many hours every week somebody should be dedicating time for this program if they're going to do it and finish it in 15 months? Or I guess that's the earliest they can finish, or 12 months or 15 months.
Right. We are going to make available a path to conclude it within 12 months.
12 months.
My best guess would be 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week is what I think it would take to make sure you are maximizing the content, to receive everything that you should be getting from the content.
That's about 3-4 hours a day is that's a commitment.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay. So, David, like, what kind of lawyers you foresee would really benefit from a program like this? And I'm asking you, from your experience, you have already been running programs for a while, and you're seeing who really benefits from this program and what kind of benefit do they get. So can you throw some light that who did you see? I mean, you don't have to restrict the answer to India. Obviously, I understand you may not have had many students from India before or from South Asia before, but you have a lot of international students and you have a lot of US students. So what do you see as, like, what category of lawyers you see really benefiting from online LLM programs?
Yeah, so what I can do is I can tell you about some of the students we've had in the program and in our programs, right? So this isn't just the attorneys, but here at the School of Law, as I mentioned, we're trying to provide legal education to a broader and broader group of people. So we have a student, Bob Reeder, who is in the LL.M and IP right now, and Bob has just started a career teaching. He's actually going to be moving to India to teach at Jindal University. We've had a young patent attorney. Her name is Tiffany Thomas Trasty, who is succeeded in this program and is now moved on into the patent field. We have, sorry, I'm buzzing through names here. William Seeger was a tax principal at KPMG, a major tax firm, who's been a part of this program. Who else here? We've got VP at JP Morgan Chase, a major bank. Augustina was at that program. But the attorney part is most important for this conversation today, right? We're talking about LLMs. We've also had physicians, detectives, registered nurses. We had the founder and CEO of the Schwartzman Group, who was a chairman of the Hershey Company board, member of the Federal Reserve Bank. So we've had a wide array of students in these programs. There are so many people who can benefit from a legal education, help them in their career. And so I think the answer is that it's just about anyone, right? This is not just for a small segment of the society. There are so many careers that are affected by the regulatory framework within their country, by the statutory framework within their country, and they can benefit in their advancement by understanding the regulatory and statutory framework within their country, within the US. So I think the answer is just about anyone.
Got it. But if some, I believe the minimum criteria for the LLM program would be an LLB degree before, right? So
absolutely. So for this specific degree, we do require that individuals have completed their first degree in law. That typically is an LLB, right? So that is a requirement for admission to this program, that they have concluded an LLB. I'm just saying that legal education more generally, we're trying to make it available to more people.
Okay, so I'm going to dig in and ask a few more questions about the admissions process. So how do you decide, if there are limited seats usually, and how do you decide that which applications are picked for admission? Like, what are some
Yeah,
of the criteria that you really look at before deciding?
absolutely. This is a decision that's made by a committee here at Texas A&M. We have an admissions committee that reviews applications. And what I can tell you is that there's just not one single factor. So students regularly request that they know, like, what is the minimum GPA? What are the minimum marks I need to get in, right? That's just not the case, right? What we look at is the application as a whole. So yes, we will look at your marks in your undergraduate degree and any graduate work you've done for that matter, and maybe that helps, right? But we're also going to look at your experience. What have you done in your career, even in your young career? What have you done to assist your community? So do you have service that you've got on your resume? We're going to look at your statement of interest and see why it is that you want to come to Texas A&M, why it is that you're looking for an LL.M and IP, right? And we're going to look at your letters of recommendation, see why these individuals think you'd be a good fit for our program. So the best answer is that we're going to look at your application as a whole. There's no one criteria, no silver bullet that gets you into the program, but we're going to look at your entire application. And so I would just encourage students not to stress about, well, my grades weren't that high, right? I didn't do as well in undergrad as I had hoped. That's not the only factor that we're looking at when we look at an application.
Okay, so it's a trick question. Like, can you give examples of applications you've rejected recently, just so that people would know like what to expect? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, look, the biggest flaw that I can find in an application is a lack of honesty, a lack of veracity. So we have a section of the application that deals with the student's record, right? Their character and fitness, we call it, right? It's going to ask you how you've done in undergrad before. Have you ever been on suspension? Have you ever been expelled from a school? Any criminal record problems? You know, and what we are checking for there is to see that you've grown, that you're willing to be truthful about the things that have happened in your life. People have had things happen in their life. That is not a disqualification. But what catches students is thinking that they can't tell us or they're going to get denied. What actually gets you denied is the lack of veracity, the lack of truthfulness. So one of the most common reasons I see students get denied is simply not telling the truth. Another is this ongoing duty to disclose. So sometimes students have something happen that affects one of those questions, and they, again, are afraid to reach out and tell us. They are far more likely to be denied admission because they did not tell us. At the bottom of the application, it's going to say, you have an ongoing duty to disclose if anything changes in relation to these 6 or 7 questions that we have here, and you're going to initial that. So please tell us. You're far more likely to be denied admission simply because you did not tell us than because of what actually happened.
Okay. That's very interesting. Can you share something about the scholarship programs you have at Texas A&M University, and also maybe you can talk a little bit about the physical LL.M program as well in that light and at the same time, because you have a physical LL.M program as well. Yeah, and a lot of people have this in mind that they want to know that online LL.M versus physical LL.M, what would it take, what is the difference, and so on. So if you can talk about that as well.
You keep getting me with these multi-part questions. I'm probably gonna have to come back to you in a minute and ask what the rest of it was. So yeah, we absolutely also have a residential LL.M program. It's a smaller program. We welcome about 30 students a year into that program, and there's students from all over the country, just like there will be in this online program. These students actually have to relocate to the United States. They spend a year here, and I just welcomed a class this week, this Wednesday. And we have students, we had 5 or 6 from India. We also have students from Brazil, South America, other regions of South America, 2 students from Mexico, students from across Northern Africa, students from the Middle East and South Asia, outside of India. We've had students from Nepal this year. So it's a very diverse, wonderful group. But as I said earlier, they have to stop what it is they're doing in their daily life, right? They cannot keep their career going. So they move here to the States. That program, I think you wanted me to talk a little bit about the scholarship program. So that program has our traditional ticket price of about $38,000, which is very competitive compared to other U.S. law schools, but still very costly, right? It's an investment in your career.
And I believe more than the tuition fee, even the living cost will be as much almost.
Oh, absolutely, right? Because you're not able to stay in your home with your family, you're relocating here. And that means paying for an apartment here in Fort Worth. That means paying for books and the expensive food while you're living here. And right, it's a whole nother expense. We usually estimate that about 20,000, which again, within the region of the U.S., that's a reasonable cost. But it's not the same as staying in your home and paying the rent or mortgage that you're already paying, right? This is a separate fee that you're paying to come here to the States. So in this program, obviously, you can remain in your current location. You're not having to pay for a second mortgage or second rent here in the States, right? Not having to pay for all of the costs associated with coming, even just the travel, right? Just the plane ticket to and from, possibly more than once if you're wanting to go home during the program. So all of that is an additional cost, which we've been able to eliminate by offering this program to students where they are. Second, and I think you've probably talked to these students a lot about this, we are scholarshiping this program, especially for this cohort, this first cohort, substantially. So where that program here on campus costs our student $38,000 US, this program is being offered at a reduced cost of $14,000 US. We're trying to make this accessible to students outside of the States.
Great. And if you can throw some light on what you expect that people would be like how they are going to benefit from the curriculum going forward, because there would be quite extensive curriculum, curricular activities, classes, and they would have to do assignments. And if you can throw some light on those things as well, like how do they get assessed in a program? Do they have to write exams? Do they have to write papers? I mean, it could be that every professor have a different system, I'm guessing, but still, if you can throw some light how it generally works.
No, that's a great question. So yes, each faculty member has the right to assess the course in the way that makes the most sense for the material that they are the expert in. But the first most important part of this question is, who are they, right? So we have a great faculty in this area, leading experts in the country. Our faculty are ranked in the top 10 in IP law in the United States, and many of those faculty will be contributing to the curriculum that these students are going to be learning from. So you're getting a top-notch curriculum from the very best in the field. Now, as far as the type of assessments, I think there are, while it may vary from course to course, there are some standard types of assessment that students should expect. Within a normal course, what you're going to expect is usually 2 assessments per week in that course. One is usually going to be something that tests your understanding, and one is going to be something that tests whether, essentially whether you're paying attention to class or not, whether you're following the material or not, right? So what you may have in a typical course is a quiz that makes sure that you've 10, 20 questions, multiple choice quiz that makes sure that you're following the material, that you've read, that you've listened to the assignments. It's just a knowledge check to make sure that you got from the material the minimum of what you should have gotten. But then you're going to have another assessment that's going to check your understanding. It's going to look for deeper knowledge. Usually that will be done through something like a discussion forum where the professors provide the class a prompt each week about the material, and the students demonstrate their knowledge of that material by answering the questions in the prompt and then discussing it with their classmates. So that's the most common type of assessment you're going to see in the first 6 weeks when you're, when you're looking at new material. Now, as you said, every professor may have their own way. You may have some professor that says, I want a journal article each week. I want you to write about something in the news each week. They may do something slightly different, but that's the most common types of assessment you're going to see. After those first 6 weeks, when you've gotten through the new material and you're being tested on your understanding of the cumulative knowledge you should have gained during the course, there's going to be a final assessment week. In that final assessment, typically you're going to see an examination. It's going to be available to you to take on your time over usually 4 days. So it'll open on Thursday, close on Sunday night, and you'll choose within that window when the best time is for you to take it. And you're going to address questions similar to what you've seen throughout the year. So I would again expect likely something like multiple choice questions and some written essay portion similar to what the discussion forums look like. Now, that is going to be the most common final assessment. There are going to be faculty, though, who maybe have a final project instead, or have a writing requirement instead, where they say, write a paper for us instead about the material. The overwhelming majority are going to be this final assessment through an exam, but each professor gets to determine the best way to test their material at the conclusion of the course.
That's very interesting and very different than how law schools assess in India, but that's I guess part of a different experience of doing an international LLM. Can you talk a little about the way you are planning to bring international adjunct professors and collaborate with some law firm partners and bring them to take some classes? If you can throw some light on that part as well.
Yeah. So first, I'll note that we already have a very diverse faculty here at the School of Law that have a wide-ranging international background, whether that's someone from the States who was educated here and has experience working abroad, or we also have a half dozen or more faculty within a very small faculty that were educated abroad and are now teaching here in the States. So within our core faculty, we already have a lot of international experience. In addition to that, in most of the courses in this program, we will have both someone who has expertise in the area of law here in the States, but also an international faculty member who has expertise in India or some portion of South Asia. So the goal is to have within most, especially within the IP courses, to have someone who can provide expertise in both areas and in international law. So we're going to provide, again, I think with the exception of just a couple courses here, the two that are kind of basic US law courses, and all the IP courses, our goal is to bring in international faculty who will work with the US faculty and make sure that the content is covered from both sides.
Yeah, it'll be a very interesting program with so many different jurisdictions getting covered.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question about your other online programs that you have. You have many online programs right now at Texas A&M University. Can you talk about them as well and how they are different from this program?
Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier. So I think this is our 13th specialization.
13. So there are 12 more. Okay.
Yeah. And when I joined here just 3 years ago, we had 3, right? So this is something that's grown very rapidly. The enrollment in these programs has grown 700% in the 3 years since we got here. There's just a lot of people, as I mentioned earlier, who have need for legal education, for growing their career through understanding some new aspect of the law, some new area, be it geographic, right, or subject matter of the law. And so we have 13 areas. We offer programs in cybersecurity law and health law, policy and management. I mentioned earlier that we've had a good number of physicians, veterinarians, pharmacists who have come here to learn the law with us. That's in the mostly in the health law, policy and management. We have a great business law program. Wealth, I can't even name, there's so many I can't even name them, but wealth management program. There's a legal risk management program, an international taxation program. There's just a wealth of programs that we've offered here. And to our great fortune, I think, because we're trying to do things the right way, every one of those programs has been successful. We've seen substantial enrollments and just offer our students a high quality program that is helping them achieve what it is they want to do in their career.
And what is the price range of these programs? Or are these all LL.M programs or different programs?
So only 3 are offered as an LL.M program: our wealth management, risk management, and international taxation. The others are offered in this other space that I've mentioned a couple of times. It's not as relevant for today, but these mid-career professionals that are in a Master of Legal Studies. The price for both of those programs is $34,000 US. So as I mentioned earlier,
okay.
Yeah. So I'll let you pause for dramatic effect. $34,000 US. So this is something that we're offering initially here at a much more competitive price. Again, trying to meet students where they are.
So this is the only program out of all the 13 which is like 14,000, and everything else is $34,000 US.
34, 38, everything else.
That I would like everyone to note that this is one program, and I'm very happy that LawSeco has played a role in persuading Texas A&M University to launch a program like this in a way that it would be accessible for lawyers in India, because obviously there's a purchasing power parity difference is significant. It's actually 17:1 India versus US. So naturally, anything what is that US price, you can assume that it's 17 times more expensive in India for somebody, and that much more unaffordable. And we hope that, although it's not 17x cheaper, but even then we believe that Texas A&M University is the only university in the US right now which is doing a program of this nature without compromising the quality that they're offering in the US, that it would be the same kind of program, but for international lawyers, especially from South Asia, focusing on their needs to become international lawyers. This is unparalleled. So, David, what are some of the challenges you are facing to make this program happen? I'm sure it was not easy, and even it's not easy going forward to run a program like this, right? So, if you can share some of that experiences.
Biggest challenge is the time difference, I think, right? So here it is, you guys are, I think, 8 p.m. in the evening, 8:30 p.m. in the evening, and we're at 10 a.m. And so, that's why it's been so important when you talked about bringing in international faculty. We're going to bring in people who are in the same time zone so that they can help students at the time that they need assistance. And you're going to have staff available to help them at the time that they need help, whereas, we'll be asleep during much of your day. But
Sure.
that's been the biggest challenge. And then just, it's always, it's not a challenge, but it's always fun to learn about the differences, right? So you guys have done such a great job, as you said, making us aware that we weren't necessarily making things accessible to a large enough group of people. So you guys are helping us, you guys at LawSeco, Ramanujan and your team, helping us to make this an accessible program to people in South Asia. And so I don't know that there's been so much challenges, it's just learning, and that's fun when this is what you do for a career. When you start new programs, finding a new way to do it is exciting to me. It's fun for me. That doesn't mean that there aren't long nights and hard times sometimes, but I really enjoy this. I don't consider it so much a challenge.
There's a question from one of the attendees. What are all the prerequisites for pursuing LL.M from Texas A&M University? Question from Sandeep Mehta. Yes.
Thank you, Sandeep, very much for the question. So we have an application, which our team here at LawSeco can provide to you. It's just a PDF document, about 10 pages, that you'll fill out for us. They'll also require a deposit up front, a small deposit, just to make sure that the student is interested in the program. We require a descriptive resume. So if you have a CV already, if that is your preference, we can also accept a CV. So CV or resume. We do want a statement of interest here telling us why you want to earn an LL.M and why Texas A&M you believe is the right school for you. Now, this is something short. We just expect it to be 1 or 2 pages. We don't want you to write us your life story in there. So just 1 or 2 page statement of interest. We're going to ask for 2 letters of recommendation. Professional recommendations or academic are fine. So let us know that 2 people in your path have supported what you're doing and that you believe you'd be a good fit for this program. The last document, forgive me, is your transcripts. And so we do require a copy of your transcripts. We will admit you upon receiving an unofficial copy. So you can just send us a photocopy of them initially, or even just snap a photo with your phone. Once you matriculate, though, we will need an official copy of your transcripts. So that is the list of documents we require in order to apply for the program. And as Ramanuj mentioned earlier, you do have to have an LLB for this program. It is a prerequisite for the program that you have your Bachelor of Laws or first degree in law.
Maybe you can throw some light on the English point as well, because I believe the university normally requires a TOEFL, TOEFL score, but there is a way that if somebody has studied in English, their LLB they have studied, which is the case in India and across South Asia, mostly the case is that you have studied your LLB degree in English, in which case you don't have to give the TOEFL. If you can explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up. And when you said challenges, I guess I probably should have said this, right? Explaining to American universities that everyone who has a law degree from India studied in English has been something that we've struggled to get across. But fortunately, we were able to explain to them that a TOEFL should not be required. So we do not require it for admission. We must still show the university that you speak English, right? That you have English language proficiency, and thus what we have got them to accept is that if you can provide for us, demonstrate proof that your university taught in English, which we already know now, all universities in India that teach an LLB do so in English, that they will waive that requirement. They will put a hold on your account when you first are admitted, and we'll have to demonstrate. So we may ask you to show us something from the website or something from the registrar that says what we already know. And then Ramanuj and his team are going to help us, prove that this is a thing across all of India, so that eventually we won't even have to do that. But initially here, we might need a little help from you after admission, demonstrating that your university taught in English, and then they will waive that requirement.
Yeah, it's not that every LLB program in India is like that, but a vast majority are, and there are a few local language programs also, but very rare. In fact, it would be very difficult to find one for me, which is not. But yeah, and the reason for that is that in India, our courts of record, which is the High Court and Supreme Court, law practice happens in English, only in English, right? And you cannot, if you're an Indian lawyer and you cannot speak in English, you cannot participate in any of the proceedings before most tribunals, as well as High Court and Supreme Court. Maybe in some local district courts, you may still appear, which is why the entire Indian legal profession relies on English language. Anyway, so thank you so much for that clarification. There's a question from Karthik Raj, who's asking, this you have answered this question before, but I think I need to explain this in Indian English. So classes will be in mode of recorded or live, right? So David, tell me if I'm right on this. So what I have understood is that there would be, the way US classes work is very different from how legal classes happen in India, right? So in India, what happens is that there's a teacher who comes to the class and explains the concept in details, and you listen to it and you write down notes, and then you may have some questions which you ask. How in the US, and especially in this program, it would happen is that the teacher would expect you to do some reading before you come to the class, and even there would be a recorded class already, okay, which you must go through, and you must learn those concepts. And then there is a live class, you can call it. It's also called an office hour, right? So there's in 1 hour, just like a live class, everybody joins live and they have a discussion with the professor. So the professor would explain the concepts, has already explained the concepts in the recorded class and the reading. So they wouldn't expect you to come, and they wouldn't be spoon feeding all those concepts now. They would expect you to already have watched that recording, already done those readings. So now you have come prepared to the class to participate in an informed discussion, an informed debate, right? And the expectation is that you also would bring some value to the class. You'll add some information, some perspective, some examples. Maybe there is something that you are bringing from your own country or your own region or your community, which would be something special, and you will contribute it to the class. So this is the understanding. So yes, there are live classes where you participate with your classmates, and there's a teacher, professor who's there to interact with you. But this is after you have already done your readings and attended your classes. So it's very different system from how I have seen most of Indian classes. There were some classes like this also with a few teachers, but quite rare. Does that answer your question, Karthik? If yes, let us know in the chat. And David, would you like to add something to this?
No, it's like you know our system better than I do. That was wonderful. Yeah, so it's, I guess I will add something. So nothing that adds real value, but we built our legal education system on the Socratic method, right? And so that's the way all of our faculty understand the material. They tell you to learn it in advance and then come to class and discuss it. And that's not as easy to do in an online classroom, right? So everything we have done, though, all the stuff we have built is with that in mind, right? That is the idea, is that you're going to take the material, you're going to learn it in advance, maybe with a little bit of note from the professor through their lectures and stuff like that. But just as you said, then you're going to discuss it with the faculty, both in the discussion forum often, right, with your classmates and your faculty member, but then also in that live office hour. So it's almost flipped, right? And some people do call it a flipped classroom.
Flipped classroom, okay. There's a question from Dilip. Can we attend classes in campus physically?
So yeah, there is a program here on. Are you saying that is a different degree program?
I think we need to clarify that if you join the online LLM program, then you do not attend classes in campus, right?
There you go.
But yes, it is possible. You can join an LLM program in campus. You have to get selected for it, but you can apply. There is absolutely no problem. But you have to recognize a couple of things. That is that tuition fee will be higher to start with, much higher, and you'll have to bear the cost of living in campus, living in Texas specifically, and all of that. So if you have the wherewithal, so one of the challenges we faced, why we started this program, David, I would just take a moment to share this.
Please, yeah.
So, a lot of people who are in the middle of their career, they want to do an US LLM and they want to have an international career. Now, if you want to have an international career, you want to work in the US at some point in the future, or you want to learn, and the starting point is to learn US law, get some education in US law. How do you get started with all of that? And the challenge, of course, you can go and physically do an LLM, and there are many law schools in the US. And it's easier to get accepted in some and harder to get accepted in others. But in the end, if you really want to go to the US and you have the money, probably you'll find one university or a few universities, in fact, which would admit you and allow you to study there, right? Unfortunately, the cost of that would be something between $50,000 to about $100,000. Could be even more in some cases. And
there are different. Oh, may I interrupt your Ramanuj for just one second?
Please.
And there are also different requirements. So obviously you've got to get a visa to come to the US, which is a time-consuming process, right? And I don't want to discourage anyone from doing it. We would love to have someone join on campus as well, but it's just a different program, a different requirement, right? So you have to demonstrate also in a program like that you have, in order to get that visa, there are different requirements. It's not an admission requirement, but you have to demonstrate that you have liquid funds in order to cover the cost of that entire first year of living and tuition and fees. So that could be roughly just under probably $60,000 US that you have to have for that program. And it's a wonderful program. As I said, we have about 30 students in it, but it's just a different program than this.
Right. And the challenge for most people is to find that money within a year, and you need all of the money within that year, right? Yeah. And you have to then first thing is to find the money, and maybe you can get an education loan, but education loan is available in India for up to about 5 lakh rupees, which is like around $8,000, right? Less than $8,000, $7,000, something like that, $7,000. And beyond that, you need to mortgage a property to get that education loan. And it's not like in the US. In the US, it's very different, I know. But in India, to get an education loan beyond that amount, you need to mortgage a property. And not everybody may have a property of that much value, something that you can mortgage and get $60,000, right? Or part of it. It is unaffordable for most of you. Like for many people, if it is not unaffordable, I highly recommend you should explore going to the US and experiencing LLM in campus for a year. It's a fantastic idea. But there is one more challenge. Many of you would want, if you do an LLM abroad like this, many of you have already told me that you want to get a job there or at the end of it, right? And that is not always so easy because of visa reasons. And also you have to realize that if you are just for a year in the US and you have to do well in your class, right? You have to probably crack a bar exam soon. I'm sorry. You have to network, you have to get your internships, You have to land a job offer and get somebody to sponsor you for visa. Now, all of this happening in a short time, most people really struggle to make that happen, even if they are able to find the money to go in the US and do the LLM. This is a typical challenge of an Indian lawyer who want to have an international career. They struggle with this. The purpose of doing an online LLM program, which is affordable for South Asian lawyers. Why? Because first, you do this program, you already got your US degree. So when you apply, if you ever apply for any kind of jobs with US employers, even remotely, it is now possible to apply for jobs remotely. And there are many US recruiters who'd hire somebody remotely in other countries, including in India. Many of law school students, like I think around 60 organizations in the US today have hired law school students, even without LLM, by the way, right? Even without LLM, just in legal assistant, paralegal, and other kind of executive assistant roles. So virtual assistant roles, and this is very common today, right? People are remotely hiring. Even in Lawsico, we have people working with us from 7 countries outside India, right? We have people in Turkey, we have people in Europe, in Italy, in Georgia, we have people in Singapore, we have people in Dubai, we have people in Bhutan, we have people in Pakistan and Bangladesh. I don't know, that's more than 7 countries, I think. But so basically there are a lot of organizations which are remote first and they're happy to work with remote talent. Now you could possibly get a job like that, but when you have a US university on your resume and you have got a very solid LLM degree with a specialization in something like IP law, which is a core area for a lot of organizations, you have a much better chance of getting an interview or getting a foot through the door, right? So that's very interesting. And I think that was our focus, that if you can do a physical LLM, like in-campus LLM, you should totally consider it. But if for some reason you still want to be an international lawyer, but you can't afford it, then this is definitely a superb option and you may want to consider it. So David, all yours, like after that long monologue, I thought we needed to create that context, but what would you like to add to this?
Well, I think one other thing we haven't mentioned is taking a year off of work, right? So a program like this that we've joined to talk about today, this online program, primarily asynchronous program, is designed to meet students where they are. So if you have a job right now and you want to continue working while you're going through this program, that's something you can do. If you're relocating to the States, then that becomes a little more challenging, right? It's very challenging to maybe continue working remotely, but I think that a lot of companies are not going to permit that. So you're talking most likely about ending your income stream for a year and coming here. Some people are in a position to do that, as Ramanuj mentioned. There are some who that might be the right fit for, but I think what we're here today to talk about is a program that is designed to meet you where you are right now. And so yeah, that's all I would add.
Yeah, like the world is really changing very fast, right? Especially post-pandemic, people are a lot more open to, they realize that online education is going mainstream and high quality education is possible through online medium. And not only that, there is a demand for global talent like never before. I think that, and international trade is growing, international business dealings are growing. International IP law is an extremely international area of law practice, because for example, if today there's a startup in India or in Japan for that matter, they come up with a very new technology, they would want to register it in the US. So they would want to register the patent in the US. If you have a movie being made in Bollywood, even they would like to register trademarks in the US. They would like to, register the copyright perhaps. If nothing else, there's merchandising deals would be happening across the world, right? So you'd be having that IP rights being exploited in China, in maybe in UK, in many multiple countries, and so there's a lot of scope for international lawyering. Now, David, there's a question from LL.M, and we must take this up. This question is about how are things different compared to University of Oklahoma when now that you are in Texas A&M University? What's the difference? And if you can throw some light on that.
Well, I just think we offer, I guess, a broader array of subjects here, and are desperately trying to, as we've said over and over today, meet students where they are. And so, we have more flexibility to offer a program like this where we can, at a reduced price point, right, where we can advance the scholarshiping and meet students at a place where they can join us.
There's a question on English. I'm not sure. So there's a question on my English is not good and I'm struggling a lot in front of judges. When he's arguing in the court before judges, he's saying he's struggling because of his English. And please help me, Varun Pratap Singh. I don't know if you have any advice for him, David, but okay, like I would add something.
Well, I mean, yeah, I actually had the opportunity to work with over the last dozen or so years, a lot of foreign educated attorneys. And so it's educated outside of the US, right? Some simple things that actually help that students don't. So of course, you could do a formalized program that's sometimes cost prohibitive, but you could join a formalized program that's going to help you improve your English. But I think there are a lot of things that students can do, or attorneys can do on their free time that help, which is simply reading for leisure in English. So finding, if you're trying to work on the English vernacular of English, finding novels that you enjoy and reading. Just the more time you spend doing it, the better you're going to get at it. Or watching, I think American television seems to be available across the globe, right? So watching sitcoms that are available across the globe, just spending more time participating in that language, right, will help you improve. Now, it may be that your desire is not to learn the English version of it, so I would give the caveat that if you're looking at the King's English more, then make sure that you're looking at British, Indian, other Australian areas where the vernacular may be more similar to what you're looking for. But if you're looking at the US dialect of English, then I've had students who've had some success improving their English by just the word is escaping me right now, but like spending a greater deal of time in their leisure time doing things they enjoy, but doing it in this language.
Very interesting. At Law Seco, we have a training program, 1-year training program, which is English legal communication for lawyers who are struggling with English. So if you are struggling with English, please look up that program. And I am myself shocked by the results I see. I see people, and there are 3 classes every week, by the way, in that program. And I have seen people who spoke to me entirely in Hindi before joining the program. And after 1 year, they're speaking to me in English and arguing with me in English. And I'm like, okay, this is great. The program really worked. And
that's a much better answer.
So I think it's deliberate practice, right? I believe that I have seen people learning English, like really speaking fluent English in 6 months. And there are people who take even a year. But in a year, if you just give it like a couple of hours a day, I would say, maybe 1 hour a day. Actually, it doesn't take a lot. Just regularity, that consistency, regularly just engaging with it and deliberately practicing. That is what makes a difference. By the way, I myself studied till I went to law school, I couldn't speak English. Okay. And I had, I studied in Bengali medium, vernacular medium. Okay. Entire school. But when I went to law school, I would want to speak in class, and I really struggled to speak in English. But now, as you can see, I can speak fairly good enough. And the reason I think is that for a while, I decided I'll not speak any other language. No matter how bad I'm in English, I'm going to keep only communicating in English and nothing else, right? So even if somebody tried to speak to me in Hindi or Bengali, I would be responding back in English. And when you do that, at some point you start thinking in English, right? There's a shift. I don't know when exactly it happens. Nobody knows, right? But if you keep trying, there's a point when you just start thinking in English and start thinking in the language. And that's where you want to get at. And then you keep working on different aspects. I'm sure while I speak, even now, I make some errors, mistakes. But that's okay. I mean, don't be too mm, insecure about making mistakes, right? It's okay to make mistakes. It's not your native language. It is understandable. Do not allow anybody to shame you, right, over that. And it happens. I have seen it happening, but you really shouldn't worry, right? You want to be an effective communicator in English language, and you are going to get there if you just keep practicing deliberately. You'll be a very good communicator very soon. Okay, so David, anything about this program doesn't, because it's an online program, one cannot write the Texas bar exam after taking this LLM, right? But there is some workaround we are aware of. So maybe you can throw some light on that. Like, yes, like not in Texas, but if somebody wants to have a future career in the US after doing this LLM, what are they going to do? What bar are they going to give?
Yeah. So the US is I think possibly a bit unique in this. We have 50 states, and within those states, each state has their own rules for admitting attorneys. So Texas has their own set of rules. New York has their own set of rules. California, their own. Kansas, on and on and on. Florida has their own set of rules. They're each done by the state's Supreme Court or the High Court in that state. The Texas bar, as you mentioned, has primarily two paths. One is earning an LL.M here in the States, and the other is earning a Juris Doctor here in the States, right? So those are a little bit harder for some people to achieve. As we mentioned, it can be quite costly to relocate, quit your job, move to the US for a year, turn an LL.M. California has an option that some students participate in that is for anyone who has already joined their state and or country's bar. It allows them to take the exam. Now, I will always caution every student, no law school has the right to tell you whether or not you can sit for a bar. That is determined by the state that you're applying for. So I would always check with that state and their bar to make sure that you understand the rules correctly, not that you're relying on someone else's understanding solely. Don't solely rely on our understanding. So look at it yourself. But it does appear that there are two paths in California to take the bar exam without earning a Juris Doctor degree in the U.S. One is to become a member of the bar in your home country. Then you have to go through our character and fitness background. We mentioned earlier why those questions were so important on our application. It's because they're going to be looked at when you apply to the state bar in almost any state. They're going to compare your answers on that state bar character and fitness portion to the application you submitted to your law school. You've also got to take the MPRE, which is a professional responsibility or ethics exam, and you have to pass that. And then you also have to pass the state bar, the actual exam. And I know that Ramanuj and his team have a path set up to help you prepare for that examination. Plus, earning your LL.M is going to teach you a bit more about American law. We're going to give you classes on the constitutional law and contract law here in the States, which are going to help you prepare for that to some extent as well. The other path is for those who have completed the LL.M already. There is a separate path where you have to have 20 hours. I don't want to get into that one with a lot of detail because most of you, I think, are going to qualify having been a member of the bar.
Yeah. The simplest idea is be a registered lawyer in your country with a good license to practice, good standing, right? You can currently practice. If that is the case, you can apply as an attorney applicant in California. That is different than a foreign educated applicant. Like if you're a foreign educated applicant, you have other requirements. But if you're an attorney with a good standing, a foreign attorney, then you apply as an attorney applicant, and that might save you a lot of other stuff. And you can straight away write, you want to write the multi-purpose state, I think multi-state bar exam. And then there's the California bar exam. You write all those exams. And anyway, you can find all the details on California bar exam, California bar website. Just look for the category attorney applicant, and it actually says how you can register, how you can, who's qualified. Just go through all of it yourself, and you will realize the requirements. And then that's actually a fabulous way. If somebody wants to become an US attorney from India, we believe it's one of the most viable paths. So David, that's one thing. I think a bunch of questions have just come in, but it's almost time. So we'll take just two more questions very quickly. There's a question that how different is US law from Indian law? Now,
I wish I knew. I am not an expert in Indian law. I do have a law degree from the U.S. I've studied our law. I know very basically that we are actually built on the same systems, right? So we both come from the British common law, and so we're both common law systems. So there's going to be some familiarity. I've worked with a lot of foreign educated students. I think sometimes that's almost the Achilles heel, though, is to think I know that legal system because we come from the same place. So I know there's enough differences that you're going to want to spend time learning the differences so that you don't get caught up thinking, well, we're both common law systems. I understand everything already. All I need is this credential.
No, it's not like that. Yeah, so common law, of course, but there's I want to just throw light on a different aspect, right? So there are different laws. So, for example, criminal law can be wildly different between India and US, and there may be different states may have different laws, right? Real estate law can be very different in every state. But here's the thing: if you are in India and you have learned IP law or you have done IP law work, okay, thankfully, and one of the reasons we chose IP law as a specialization for this program and we want to go for IP law is because of this. If you want to become an international lawyer, IP law really stands out. Why? Because IP law is harmonized across the world thanks to the WTO, the World Trade Organization. There's a treaty called TRIPS, the Trade Related Intellectual Property Agreements, right? And trade related intellectual property rights. And this TRIPS agreement ensured that the substantive law across the world in the WTO member countries is very similar. If it was not similar, for example, India, after we signed the WTO, we acceded to WTO and we signed those agreements, we had to make a lot of change in our patent law so that it aligns with the global laws, right? And that's the case in the US and every other WTO member country. So which means that if you know the patent law in one country, the substantive law and the principles would be very similar across the world. There would be like different judgments. There would be different procedures. Procedure would be different, right? So for example, the way patent is registered in India and the way it is done in the US, while the principles would be same, that what can be patented, what cannot be patented, and there may be some small differences, right? But the procedure can be substantially different, right? How it is done, how many days it takes, what is looked at, who examines it, how many times it is examined. I don't know, like how much time you get to cure a defect. All of that would be different. But apart from procedure, the substantive law is similar. Now imagine if you want to learn corporate law in the US, if you want to learn real estate law in the US, you're going to start from ground floor. You don't know anything, right? You have to create the foundation, right? Because even the principle may be drastically different, right? What is black here may be white there, right? What is white here may be black. It could completely baffle you sometimes. And we see that because we have a bunch of US paralegal courses in LawSeco and we have people learning these things, and but IP law is not like that. IP law is very international practice friendly that way. So that might be interesting if you are worrying about how different is Indian and US law would be. Yes, it will be very different, but a lot of similarities if you are picking up IP law as a specialization. But good news is that if you take this LL.M, one of the first modules you learn is the US legal system, because that's where you start understanding how the US legal system works. And then only you proceed to IP law and stuff. Correct, David?
Yes, right? That's actually one of the first two courses you take, Introduction to the US Legal System. I've taught that course a few times here and over the last decade. It's a wonderful course and it will get you the structure of the system.
Right. And also very interesting that if you like, what happens is if you learn IP law, very often you would be working with lawyers from different countries and maybe even sometimes clients from different countries. Now, US IP law there are a lot of Indian law firms which is doing US IP law in India for Indian clients. There are Indian law firms, which are they're outsourcing shops in India, which are basically doing US IP law work, but for Chinese clients, right? And there would be law firms in China, in Japan, in South Korea, in every country which has significant innovation and significant IP, significant economy for that matter. Brazil, Russia, maybe not Russia now, but even many other countries now, where there would be significant need for US IP law expertise. And that's also something is very interesting. There's another question that Kamal is asking, that how is the education system different? Legal education is how is it different? I think that will call for a very long answer. But David, you want to take a shot at this?
I mentioned a little bit earlier, and you did as well, that I think one of the primary differences is that our legal education system was built on this idea of the Socratic method, where the students come in having learned by reading, in this case, sometimes watching videos, and then come in prepared to answer questions and discuss. So in a sense, the students help lead the lecture in the US in legal education, whereas in many countries or in even other areas within the US outside of law, legal education, the professors lead the lecture, right? They make sure that everyone is familiar with the material. They tell you, here's what you need to know for this class. In law school and legal education in the US, it's much more, students are much more involved in the education, in providing the education.
Got it. Okay, I think we have answered most of the questions. Ratul and Rudresh, thank you very much. If you have missed any questions, please do, please let us know if you have missed any very important question. But I think we have covered most of it. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, David. Any concluding remarks that you'd like to leave, or anything you'd like to share with anybody who's, especially people who are sitting on the fence for applying to the program?
Yeah, so first I want to say, like, I'm really excited about this. This is a unique opportunity. This is not something, I've worked in US legal education for over a dozen years. This isn't something I've had the opportunity to do before, to offer a program that meets individuals at a price point that they can afford, and while in their career, right? This is not something that I've had a chance to do outside of the States before. And so I'm really excited about that. If you're on the fence, I recommend you to talk to someone on our team, talk to someone at LawSeco here at A&M who can answer your questions and make sure that you have the information you need. I think if you have the information, then this becomes a much easier decision, right? I think we can answer your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, David. Thank you really for making time for this and answering so many questions. Really look forward to having you again on our LawSeco Lives, and hope to receive you in India in future and interact with you here and do a live event with you sometimes.
That would be wonderful. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you guys giving me some time to talk to you and more importantly, talk to the students.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care. Good night. Bye-bye.